Over the last few days, one name has been constantly popping up in the headlines and all over social media. That name is Cha Eunwoo. The issue revolves around taxes, and as usual, public opinion began to form almost instantly. But behind the massive headlines and the fragments of information circulating, there are crucial details that rarely get discussed in their entirety. Hi guys, it's Sean, and welcome back to Trace Zero. Following up on my post from yesterday, today we're going to deconstruct a case that's currently blowing up all over the internet, the Cha Eunwoo case. Before I dive in, I want to make one thing very clear. The goal of this video is to present exactly what happened, as clearly and accurately as possible. I'm going to stay completely neutral on this. And I'm certain that after you watch this video until the end, some of you might think, oh, so that's how the story goes. And that's a fair reaction. Everything I'm sharing today is based on information circulating online and in the media. I am not taking anyone's side here. Let's get straight into it, because you never know how deep this hole goes. First of all, before we dive into the details, I want to establish what the confirmed facts are at this point. The one undeniable fact is that the tax authorities are demanding a payment of over $12.5 million from Cha Eunwoo's camp. This is because the tax office believes the amount of tax previously paid by his side was significantly lower than what it should have been. Now, this leaves us all confused. I mean, how is that even possible? Cha Eunwoo is incredibly successful. He definitely has top-tier tax experts on his payroll. So, how did this mess happen? I'm sure many of you are asking the same thing. And you're right to wonder. According to his agency, Fantagio, the tax office is indeed demanding that $12.5 million. But keep in mind, this doesn't mean the figure is final. It simply means the tax authorities claim there's a shortfall. If Cha Eunwoo or his agency can prove that the taxes they already paid were appropriate and correct, then this $12.5 million demand could be dropped, or the amount could be adjusted. So, just to be clear, this $12.5 million is the figure presented by the tax office. It's not a final verdict. That is the situation as it stands. Now, let me explain how a problem like this even occurs in the first place. I'm sure you've seen the reports flooding your feed, and then there's this mention of a private company owned by his mother. It's all pretty confusing, right? Well, I'm going to break it down for you as simply as possible in this video. So, how does Cha Eunwoo actually make his money? He's signed with an agency called Fantagio. This means that whenever there's a brand deal or a project, they contact Fantagio. The payment goes to Fantagio, and they act as the mediator between the brand and Eunwoo. Once the payment is received, they split the profits, and Eunwoo's share is paid out to him personally. That's the standard process. So, where's the problem? And where does his mother's private firm come into play? Well, here's the thing. After those brand deals, Eunwoo's earnings are supposed to go directly to him. But based on the reports currently circulating, the money that should have been paid to Eunwoo, let's say, for example, $62,000, wasn't given to him in full. Instead, it was split. Maybe $31,000 went to Eunwoo, and the other $31,000 was sent to a private corporation owned by his mother. Now, you might be thinking, what's the difference? At the end of the day, that total $62,000 still stays within Eunwoo's camp. But guys, this is where you need to understand how the tax system works in South Korea. If you look at the reports from Dispatch, the $12.5 million being demanded by the tax office is actually the income tax from that corporation. It's estimated that the total profit earned by Eunwoo's side or his corporate entity reached or even exceeded $62 million. Now, if Fantagio pays $62 million directly to Eunwoo as an individual, as opposed to routing $64 million to his mother's corporation, the total tax burden becomes vastly different under Korean law. In South Korea, If an individual's income exceeds $625,000, the tax rate is 45%. This means if that $62 million is paid directly to Eunwoo as an individual, he would be on the hook for 45% of that entire amount. Oh, but wait, it doesn't even end there. On top of that, there's an additional 4.5% for local district tax. So 45% goes to the national government and 4.5% goes to your local municipality. This means out of that $62 million, the total tax hit reaches 49.5%. In other words, if we take $62 million and round it to 50%, you're only left with $31 million. But if this income is paid to a corporation, the tax rate is only about 24%. When you add the local tax, which is 10% of that corporate rate, you're looking at a total of 26.4%. So if you take that $62 million and deduct 26.4%, you're left with roughly $46 million. Think about that. One scenario leaves you with 31 million, and the other leaves you with 46 million. That's a difference of about $15 million. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, it's different. One is in Eunwoo's own name, and the other is in the name of a corporation. Well, hold on. Actually, quite a lot of Korean celebrities receive their income through a corporation because the tax rate is much lower. And why exactly do they do this? First, it's to cut down on the amount of money paid out in taxes. Second, think about that. $15 million. If it's paid directly to Eunwoo, he's only left with $31 million. But if it's paid to a corporation, that extra $12.5 million can be used for property investments, buying cars, or other ventures that could generate even more wealth. This is actually a pretty common practice among Korean celebrities. When your income is that massive, the choice between paying 50% or 26.4% in taxes is a no-brainer, right? If you're wondering, a lot of celebrities in Korea do this. So why is Cha Eunwoo the one getting called out? Well, you're right. But there's one specific detail that the tax office flagged as suspicious. The tax authorities raised this point, and most media outlets seem to agree that something about it just doesn't add up. Here's the thing. Who is Cha Eunwoo's management agency? It's Fantagio. This means Fantagio is the one actually handling all the management work. So, if the revenue sharing is done through Fantagio, that's completely normal. And usually, when celebrities set up their own corporations, they're essentially one-person companies. So, let's say I'm a famous star in Korea, and I set up my own corporation, my own management, and have my income paid directly to that company. If that were the case, it wouldn't be much of an issue. It's not that it's completely fine, but it's less problematic. The real problem here is that Fantagio is already the entertainment agency, and while a portion of the income was paid to Eunwoo, another portion was paid to a corporation owned by his mother under the guise of management fees. This caused the tax office to raise an eyebrow, thinking, wait a minute, Fantagio is the management. Why is there another management company involved? This looks like a scheme to avoid taxes. That is one of the main perspectives being questioned in this whole situation. If Fantagio didn't exist and his mother's corporation was his direct management, then maybe this wouldn't be an issue. So, that's the first point. And the second point is the corporation itself. If this company actually had employees and was genuinely providing management services, it would be much easier to prove and might not even be a problem. The issue is that this corporation was actually registered at the address of Cha Eunwoo's mother's restaurant. This led the tax office to think, wait, the management is Fantagio? So why is this address listed at his mother's restaurant? This must be a paper company just to avoid taxes. This is exactly why the tax office feels like the company doesn't actually have any real management function, that it's basically just a shell used for tax evasion. At least, that's the tax office's take on it. And honestly, Cha Eunwoo isn't the first one to deal with something like this. There have been other celebrities hit with similar issues before, but none of them were on the same scale as him, so those cases never really blew up like this one. However, with everything going on now, it feels like the tax authorities are trying to send a clear message to celebrities and public figures. To all you high earners out there, don't even think about playing games with your taxes or using a company to dodge them, because if you do, watch out, you could end up just like this. Some media outlets are even saying that this whole move is being used as a scare tactic, a way to intimidate other celebrities so they won't try to pull the same stunt. And thirdly, even if his mother's company did provide management services, the fees shouldn't have been that high. I mean, when it comes to brand deals, the lion's share of the payout should obviously go to Cha Eunwoo, with only a standard cut for management. So why was his mother's company being paid such a massive amount? Of course, we don't know the exact figures, but that's the big question the tax office is throwing out there. So simply put, that's the gist of it. Basically, the tax office is like, look, Cha Eunwoo, you're already with a management agency called Fantagio, and you've already done a profit split with them. But now you're splitting your earnings again with your mother's company? Something's fishy here. It looks like you're just trying to dodge taxes. And that's where the problem lies. Because let's be honest, when money is paid out to a company, it becomes much more flexible. For instance, the company could buy a house and then let the shareholders or the artist live there for free. So technically, the house is in the company's name, but they're staying there rent-free. Or they might buy luxury cars under the company's name, claiming they're for business use when they're actually for personal use. This is a common practice for companies in Korea, and honestly, plenty of big corporations probably do the same thing. But with celebrities, the amounts seem more substantial, and it just looks like what Cha Eunwoo did was a blatant attempt at tax avoidance. That's why it's become such a huge issue. What's making this case even more controversial is the claim that the tax office only went public with this after Cha Eunwoo enlisted in the military. It feels like this has actually been brewing since last year, but they kept it under wraps and waited until he was off serving his mandatory service before breaking the news to the public. On top of that, back on the 23rd of December 2025, his mother's company actually changed its registered address. It moved from her restaurant's location to an office building in Gangnam. And of course, this little detail is what's really starting to make people wonder. People are starting to think maybe they already got a warning last year and they moved the address just to deflect suspicion from the tax authorities. This has even led some to speculate, wait, could Cha Eunwoo have enlisted just to escape the public scrutiny? So if he weren't in the military right now, he'd probably be getting slammed with hate comments. But since he's already enlisted, he's basically isolated from all that. Because of this, some people are saying, oh, Cha Eunwoo isn't just enlisting, he's going into hiding. That's what some people are saying. To be clear, there is still no 100% certainty whether Cha Eunwoo was actually dodging taxes or not. We don't know for sure yet. However, many people believe that if the tax office has gone this far, there's likely a real case to answer for. That's what's causing all the noise right now. On top of that, brands that had long-term contracts with him have stopped running their ads featuring him. This makes the whole situation feel even bigger. But we really don't know how this is going to end. Tax issues are incredibly complicated, and I'm definitely not a tax expert. So this is as much as I can tell you for now. So that's the deal for today's video. One thing you've probably realized by now is just how high the income tax in Korea really is. Since Cha Eunwoo makes such an insane amount of money, maybe it doesn't seem that relatable. But imagine if you were working a normal job in Korea. On top of the income tax, there's also mandatory health insurance, which takes up about 8% of your income. The monthly cap for this can go as high as $4,000. Think about it. If you earn $312,000, about $125,000 of that goes straight to taxes. On top of that, you have that 8% health insurance. That's roughly $25,000 a year, which means you're paying around $2,000 to $2,500 every single month just for insurance. When you add it all up, 45% plus 4.5% plus another 8%, the tax burden in Korea is just wild. In short, building significant wealth in Korea requires a very smart financial strategy. Because the tax burden on earned income is so high, many people focus on long-term investments, as the tax structures there can be much more manageable compared to a standard salary. That's it for today. I hope this gives you a clearer picture of what's actually going on. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to paint Cha Eunwoo as the bad guy or anything like that. My goal is just to make sure those of you following this case understand exactly what happened and why this specific situation was flagged, even though there might be other celebrities doing something similar. Before we wrap up today's video, there's one more thing we should talk about. According to Dispatch, Cha Eunwoo's mother reportedly owns two companies that basically do the same thing. His mother's salary was reported to be around $1,100,000. Of course, that's heavily taxed. But what's even crazier is that if she ever wants to transfer that money to Cha Eunwoo, it would be hit with another gift tax of about 30 to 40%. This reminds me of when Lee Kun-hee, one of Samsung's biggest shareholders, passed away about 5 years ago. When his wealth was passed down to his children, the inheritance tax reportedly reached a staggering $7.5 billion. So, it seems like becoming wealthy in Korea is tough, but the way the wealthy pay their taxes is also on a whole different level. Anyway, that's all for today's video. I hope this was helpful. Once again, I'm staying completely neutral, and I hope you all understand that I'm just here to deliver the information. And if you're still watching this, maybe you're looking for the same thing I am.